Welcome to NHL Quick Hits. I'm David Crosby here with Steele Roden, and we're back with another first round series preview. You can find the others on our social media or YouTube channel, so go check those out. But this one starts in Washington on Saturday night. We get Boston and Washington, a great matchup. Both of these teams can play multiple style, that heavy game. They've got some bruisers on both sides, or the skill in this series is incredible. They can have that high-scoring game. We both know there are some superstars on each of these teams, but I think the biggest storyline in this series has to be Zdeno Chara. After 14 seasons in Boston, Chara has a chance to knock the Bruins out in round one. Steele, do you think his knowledge of Boston's players and systems gives Washington a meaningful advantage in this series?
I mean, a little bit. I think it does a little bit. Obviously, for him being there for 14 seasons, he's going to know the game plan a little bit and know what Marchand and Pastrnak and Charlie McAvoy are going to be doing on the ice. So obviously, he'll have some insight on what might happen, what might transpire. But regardless, I think Peter Laviolette for the Washington Capitals is going to keep his guys going with the system that he has all season. And it's really worked for them. They've been incredible the entire season. I really didn't see them in finishing top two in this division. I thought they were definitely going to make the playoffs, but I thought they had a tremendous job. And we already know that this matchup's going to be physical and gritty and very chippy right from the get-go. So Chara, he's already showed that he's going to step up for his teammates, even against his team, his former team in the Boston Bruins, when we saw a couple times in the regular season when things got chippy between those two benches. But again, Chara, Wilson, Marchand, Grizzly, Richie, guys like that, we know they're going to be attacking each other on the ice, going for each other and trying to antagonize, especially Brad Marchand. But obviously, I think Chara being a veteran for the Boston Bruins brings a little bit of an advantage to the Washington Capitals. But again, they're going to stick to their game plan and get the job done against those Bruins.
This could be a nasty series. I don't know what the record is for the number of penalty minutes in a playoff series in the last 25 years or so, but if this series goes 7 games, that it could probably compete with that, because this one's going to be wild. If there's a prop too, if Tom Wilson gets a suspension or a fine, I would be taking that. No questions asked, man. He's going to be out there like a bowling ball. I mean, it's going to be amazing, but I want to talk about some of the skill before we get to some of that, rough and tumble style. Taylor Hall scored the OT winner against the Islanders Monday night to kind of put that exclamation on his 2-goal game, and that continued his lights out play after leaving Buffalo. So how much of an impact do you think Hall will have in these playoffs?
I think he's going to have a tremendous impact. And I said that from the get-go for when Boston Bruins actually acquired him. He has 14 points in 16 games for the Bruins, 8 of those being goals. He already has 6 more goals than the time he was in with Buffalo for those 36 games at the beginning of the season. So apparently, you're right. I am a psychic. I always get the right answers here. He's been tremendous for the Boston Bruins, and he's going to be one of those star players for them in the playoffs, especially going against a team like the Washington Capitals. I think that's just someone that you can mix and match throughout the lineup if things aren't going. Put him on the first power play unit with Pastrnak and Marchand and Bergeron. Put him on the first line with potentially Pastrnak, Bergeron, and maybe let Marchand drop that a little. If things aren't going right, it's just one of those things that you can mix and match with those players because you have so much talent, like you said, on those first 2 lineups for the Boston Bruins. So I love that he's with the Boston Bruins now. I think he's going to be a tremendous asset for them in the playoffs, especially on the power play.
I'm really excited for Hall for this opportunity, and he seems super gung-ho to get this started, and he feels like definitely his confidence is riding really high. I mean, he's been on some terrible, terrible teams, and he has a really bad reputation for some reason among a lot of fans that he's kind of a regular season player, and he doesn't really impact winning. But this is going to offer him the chance to really show that he can be one of the guys you can lean on in the playoffs. And I agree. I think he's going to have a really good showing here. Let's go back to the other side, though. Maybe the biggest star in this series, Alexander Ovechkin, has been out for 7 of the last 8 games with a lower body injury. Does Washington stand a chance if he's not at 100%?
Well, it does if he's not even going to be playing in a couple of those games if he's still injured. But if he's in the lineup, it takes their chances back just a little bit. Just because, obviously, if you're not 100%, it's going to affect the team some way, shape, or form. So, obviously, if you have a nagging injury going into the first round of the playoffs, it's on your mind, and it does affect you sometimes on a couple of those plays where you can't hesitate. You have to think fast and make sure you get the job done. So it definitely takes a little bit of the odds and percentages for them winning the Stanley Cup or even getting past the Bruins down a little bit. He's their best player, no question. That's why those odds drop down a little bit. And I think it's going to be a very tough series. And like you said, there's a lot of skill on both sides of these teams, tremendous goaltending from both sides of these teams. Well, I actually believe it's going to be a low-scoring affair for the most part, just because they're going to have to be so key and focused on keeping those skilled players away from the net, keep them towards the outside, make sure there's no crashing and getting rebounds from those goaltenders who we a couple of times let those rebounds out. So for me, I think this will be a very low-scoring series, a very gritty, very physical matchup between the Boston Bruins and the Washington Capitals.
This is a really tough series to call, but I'm going to put you on the spot here. Let's finish off with a prediction. How do you think this series plays out?
It was very hard because I wanted to go with the Washington Capitals just because I think I have a lot of faith in their young goaltenders in the crease, Samsonov and Vitek Vanacek. So I have a lot of faith in those guys. But the Tuukka Rask and Yaroslav Halak, they have a lot of experience in this. They know what they need to do to get the job done. I went back and forth with this for a little bit, but the Boston Bruins in Game 7, I just think it's going to come down to the wire in overtime. And Taylor Hall, Pastrnak, Marchand, one of those guys is going to get them the game winner.
I agree. I think it's going to be Boston in 7. It wouldn't surprise me if it goes the other way, but just that Ovechkin injury lately kind of scares me a little bit. I'm not sure you can rely on Tom Wilson to be there the whole series. And I think if it becomes a physical series, which I do see it happening, you said you think it would be low scoring. I don't necessarily think it'll be low scoring, but I do think as the series wears on, it will get more and more physical. And I think that benefits the Bruins because Washington is a little more undisciplined. I could see them taking some bad penalties that might end up costing them. Great call on the goalies too. I mean, you have more options, I feel like, with Washington, a couple solid goalies, but Tuukka Rask is the man in this series. He has by far the most experience and the best numbers, frankly. So yeah, I have to stick with the Boston Bruins as well. That's all the time we have for today's episode, but tune in for more playoff previews this week. On behalf of Steel Roden, I'm David Crosby, and thanks for tuning in to NHL Quick Hits.